Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Lots of stuff happening, Matt. Time to get into it. Let's not waste any time. Let's start off with the 3 stars of the week since we didn't have an episode on Monday due to the holiday here in British Columbia, Canada, for Family Day. You get out and do anything interesting for Family Day?
No, not really. I think I just stayed at home, watch a couple movies, watch a bit of hockey. But yeah, I think Family Day is like that one day that is just like, oh yeah, that's that holiday sort of thing.
Well, let's get right into it. Let's jump into the 3 stars of the week because we got lots to talk about.
All right, yeah. So the third star of this past week was Sidney Crosby. In 4 games played, he had 2 goals, 10 points, up to 25 goals, 73 points on the season in 57 games. The second star of the week from the St. Louis Blues, Vladimir Tarasenko. In 4 games, he had 4 goals, 10 points, 2 game-winning goals, and got his 400th career point. He's up to 26 goals, 51 points in 58 games this year. And the first star of this week, and he'll probably be the first star of next week, from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Nikita Kucherov. In 3 games, he had 3 goals and 10 points in 2 4-point games. He's now up to 99 points in just 61 games this year. He's on pace for over 130 points this season, which would be the first player to do it since Lemieux and Yager back in 1996. So that's how good he's been this year. And he had a 5-point game against Columbus earlier this week, where he got a point on all 5 goals by the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's just unbelievable what he's been doing.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, I mean, he's only 1 point off right now from 100. I'm going to guess he does it in their next game. Tampa's on a roll, but another team I want to touch on right away is the St. Louis Blues. Beginning of January, last in the NHL, now the winners of 11 straight. Did they just really need a save?
Oh yeah, well I think even when over the summer when we touched on the St. Louis Blues and we were doing our playoff predictions, the one thing I said, I was like, I don't mind their roster, but their goaltending and Jake Allen, I was like, I do not trust him whatsoever. But Jordan Binnington, holy crap, this guy is so good. 13-1-1, I believe 4 shutouts. I think St. Louis Blues had like 3 straight shutouts this week before beating the Leafs in overtime 3-2 last night. This guy's been so good. In their 11-game win streak, they have 43 goals for and only 16 goals against. So when you're getting the goaltending, and Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko have been absolutely ripping it up. I think Tarasenko's like on a 12-game point streak right now, but yeah, it's just like that. Oh yeah, and I'll bring up that Robert Bertuzzo, Zach Sanford fight that they had in practice when things were going really rough. Since then, the Blues are 23-10-1 since that fight. So take that for a grain of salt. But yeah, it's the Blues, man. They're third place in the Central Division now since being in last place in the NHL. But yeah, they're an exciting team to watch right
now. Talking about hot players, Patrick Kane has a nice little point streak going on right now in Chicago, and Chicago pushing hard right now in the West Turtle Derby for that final couple playoff wild card spots. What kind of streaks you on? And touch on some of the other streaks that are going on right now.
Okay, yeah. So Patrick Kane is on an 18-game point streak, which is incredible. He's up to 90 points on the season in just 59 games played, being the second guy since Kucherov to reach that mark. This guy's been unbelievable. Like him and Dylan Strome, since picking him up, he's been like a point-a-game player, and he actually would be leading the Arizona Coyotes in points right now if he was still with the Coyotes.
Well, that depends, because if Max Domi was still there, he'd be leading them.
Oh yeah, just another great guy that the Coyotes should have kept. But yeah, he's the hottest guy in the NHL right now. He's just basically getting like 2 or 3 points, especially that game against Ottawa earlier this week. If you didn't see that game, Chicago beat Ottawa 8-7 in old school game like from like the 80s. I think it was a 9-goal first period as well. And
9-goal, 4-goalie first period.
yeah, just completely insane. Also, some more records. Alexander Ovechkin is up to 42 goals on the season. It's the 10th time in his career he's reached the 40-goal mark. Only 3 other guys in NHL history have done that. Wayne Gretzky's did it 12 times. Marcel Dion, 10, and Mario Lemieux also did it 10 times. So just unbelievable what he's doing. And he's on pace right now for 58 goals, which would be the second highest of his career since that 65-goal season. I believe that was like his 4th or 5th year in the league. And he's 33 years old now, so the old guy can still get it done, especially from that spot on the left circle. It's just crazy.
He's just a young guy still.
Yeah, and then what else? We had Chris Kunitz. He played in his 1,000th NHL game with the Chicago Blackhawks. Phil Kessel picked up his 800th career point. Dustin Brown picked up his 600th with the LA Kings. And here with the Canucks, Brock Besser got his 100th career point against the San Jose Sharks.
Let's talk about some of the other hot teams right now in the NHL. Starting in the East, I want to touch on the Boston Bruins and their incredible surge that they've had here in the last month and a half. Because as of today, Boston is ahead of Toronto, and Toronto would be starting on the road in the playoffs in Boston. And I'm sure Toronto fans would be not too happy or fond about doing that.
I know, yeah. So they've been 14-3-5 since January the 1st. I think the biggest thing here is that they've gotten healthy, and Tuukka Rask has returned to form after an early season struggle where Yaroslav Halak was basically playing every other game until late. But yeah, the health, Patrice Bergeron playing out his mind. Brad Marchand's up to 70 points this year. They did make a trade today, though, as well. They picked up Charlie Coyle from the Minnesota Wild. Excuse me, for Ryan Donato and a 5th-round pick. Donato was their top prospect, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in Minnesota and how each team will round out with each player. But Coyle will help in the short term at least, because David Pastrnak is out at least 2 weeks with a thumb injury right now, and he has the potential to get around 50 points a year. So I think it's a good pickup for either team, but it'll be interesting to see if Donato does get into like that 30-40 goal score in years to come. It could look really good for the Wild.
And the other team in the East I wanted to touch on are the bunch of jerks in Carolina. They're pushing hard for a playoff spot. They're only 1 point behind Columbus right now for that the second wild card spot. They've been playing some great hockey, and I think that trade they made getting Nino Niederreiter has really helped their team as well. He's fit right in.
Yeah, he's been basically like a point-a-game player, I believe, and Sebastian Aho. Talk about a guy that's going to earn a lot of money this offseason. I think he's up to like around like 67 points this season. And Justin Williams, the old vet, he's been hot of late. We'll be interested to see what exactly they do with Michael Ferland now, because I think he's going to be turning into a self-rental now, especially with all the trade guys, with like everybody's waiting on Mark Stone, Matt Duchene, and Artemi Panarin to get traded. So that might end up being a last-minute thing, depending on if they want to trade him. And the goaltending, Peter Mrazek and Curtis McElhinney. I don't think anybody would have been putting those two guys in the same sentence and saying the Carolina Hurricanes would be anywhere near a playoff spot. But both of those guys have been playing really well. And they do have like that stacked defense. I think one of the guys, like you see all those right-handed defensemen, Hamilton, Falk, and Pesci, but Jacob Slavin has been an absolute beast for them on that left-hand side. But yeah, I'm actually hoping that they can somehow sneak into the playoffs, because like if you look at the West standings, only 5 teams in the Western Conference would be in a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. So that's how bad the West has been this year, which is just crazy to think.
Well, let's touch on a hot team in the West. We already touched on St. Louis. They're getting the goaltending. that they finally needed. Tarasenko's heating up like crazy. But the San Jose Sharks, Erik Karlsson back now from injury. I think they're poised to make a potential long push into the playoffs. What have you seen from them lately? Joe Thornton getting a hat trick even the other day.
Yeah. Joe Thornton's first hat trick in 10 years, which is just
not
crazy.
really known as much of a goal scorer, more of a playmaker though. I'll give him that.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is their depth up front and their back end. Like you got like Timo Meier, Couture, Pavelski, Meier, Kane. Like all these guys already have over 20 goals this season, and then you throw in the two Norris winners and Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson on the back end. It's just crazy. I think like the only interesting thing will be Martin Jones in that. Like his save percentage is still below 900, even though he has the second most wins in the NHL. I'll be interested to see, because usually in the playoffs he has been a really good playoff goalie in years past. But I'll be interested to see with the way he's played this year if he can start to find his form going into the playoffs, or if it's like a Braden Holtby situation where his regular season numbers weren't great, but when he got in the playoffs, then he really just stood on his head. Because I think the Sharks can really go on a run, because like the Calgary Flames, like I like their team, but the goaltending situation there is still a bit of a question mark. Because David Riddick, he started to cool off a little bit, and Mike Smith's been playing ahead of him these past few games. But yeah, like the Sharks, I think like they could be the favorite in the Western Conference right now, I would say.
Yeah, in my opinion, both Winnipeg and Nashville are playing okay hockey, but they're not quite up to form. Lots of trade rumors around certain players. Duchesne and Stone, of course, in Ottawa. Wayne Simmons in Philadelphia. Heard today that Anaheim and San Jose are close to a deal that might send Ryan Miller for a third-round pick to San Jose. Obviously, I would say as a backup role to Jones instead of Aaron Dell for their playoff run. Also, Washington putting Devontae Smith-Pelly, of all players, on waivers today to potentially clear some cap space for a trade that they're looking into. What else have you seen or you think might go down, or a couple of players that you think might move?
Yeah, so I think Kevin Hayes and Matt Zuccarello, both from the New York Rangers, would be guys I'd be keeping an eye on, especially with the Jets and Kevin Hayes. I think could be a fit if they don't want to go like the Derek Brassard route with the Florida Panthers, because I think that center ice position, sort of like what they did with Paul Stastny last year, I think that's what they'd be looking for, and they're looking for a pure rental just because their cap space next year is going to be just they won't be able to fit anybody with Laine, Connor, Trouba, all those guys.
And Winnipeg has the they have the assets to move if they want a rental, or I mean their window is right now if that's what they want to push for, right?
Mm-hmm. Because that, and then maybe Matt Duchesne in the Nashville Predators, I think could be a fit. I think I've seen that rumor out there. Especially, I think David Boyle, the Predators general manager, he's been really interested in trying to get Duchesne over the past few years. And like we saw, like in that three-way trade, they weren't able to get him, but they got Kyle Turris instead. And Turris hasn't really had the greatest year. He's been injured for most of the year. And hasn't really produced at where they would want him to since getting him to that contract extension. But yeah, Duchesne's being held out of the lineup tomorrow with the deadline coming up on Monday. It'll be interesting to see. And Mark Stone, we saw when Ottawa was in Winnipeg, the fans were really wanting. We were chanting, "We want Stone" a little bit there, because like between that and the Calgary Flames, I think would be a great fit for Mark Stone.
Yeah, and I heard both Duchesne and Stone practice today for Ottawa. I think Stone would be a great fit in Winnipeg. I keep hearing that his name coming up there. I keep hearing in Calgary that they're eyeing Wayne Simmons. So that would be interesting to watch and see if Calgary can do that, just because James Neal now out for, it looks like, potentially the rest of the season. Or they may have to hold him out until the end of the season if they want to use that cap space and then have him come back, because, of course, in the playoffs, the cap goes out the window. So other news and notes that you have there, some key guys coming back from injuries. and a few key guys that are out with injuries.
Yeah, so one contract extension to announce. I think this just broke. The Anaheim Ducks look like they have signed Jacob Silverberg to a 5-year extension with a $5.25 million cap hit. 28 years old. What was in the trade rumor bill, but Anaheim was really wanting to get him locked up to a contract extension. It looks like they did get that done. I'm not sure if that's confirmed as of right now. For some injuries, for some guys coming back, Justin Schultz with the Pittsburgh Penguins came back, and he's already had a couple assists since rejoining the team. Brian Elliott with the Philadelphia Flyers came back. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that with the Flyers acquiring Cam Talbot. Now they have 3 goalies there. As they put Mike McKenna on waivers today, as they really troll the Canucks now that they signed Michael Leighton the other day. So all they were doing was just waiting for the Canucks just to sign that extra guy. Andrew Ladd and Thomas Hickey looks like they will be returning soon for the New York Islanders after having a long-term conditioning stint down in the American League. They'll be in Vancouver this weekend, actually, coming up. Evgeny Malkin, after missing a couple games, was back with the Penguins as well. And some guys on the injured reserve. Pasternak, as we mentioned earlier. John Gibson with the Anaheim Ducks was put on injured reserve.
And John Gibson, correct me if I'm wrong, he's out with severe sunburn on the back of his neck. The red light going off too much after the All-Star game, right?
Well, either that or back spasms because he's been carrying the team for too much of the season. What else?
Radko Gudas suspended today too by the NHL for games for his high stick on Nikita Kucherov the other night.
Mm-hmm. That and what else? I think there were too many injuries. Like Pittsburgh also had Oli Mata. I believe it was a shoulder injury put on injured reserve. And Canuck-wise, like Brandon Sutter with that groin injury. And with Edmonton Oilers, Jesse Puljujarvi was put on injured reserve and could possibly be sent down to the American Hockey League later this week. And Canuck injury news, Jake Virtanen out at least a month with a fractured rib after Ryan Getzlaf accidentally on purpose interfered with him on a hit last week. But yeah, outside of that,
Andre Sekera is back for Edmonton too. Potentially giving him some stability on that back end. I'll be curious to see. I mean, Edmonton, even though they're in 8th and I guess they're a lot further back. They're 8th for the wild card right now, and second last in the entire West. But I still think they have a chance if they can get hot at the right time for a couple of weeks. I think they still have a shot at grabbing one of those wild card spots. So, final word to you, Matt. Let's wrap up today's show.
All right, yeah. So I will have tonight's highlights up. Only 4 games on, but yeah, tonight's highlights will be up on our Facebook page under B&B Hockey Talk. The highlights tomorrow probably won't post until Friday because I have a hockey game that night. But yeah, if you want to see all the highlights, you can check out Alexander Barkov's between the legs goal against Montreal. If you haven't seen that, take a look at that, and even some funny videos of Pierre Maguire just about getting hit by a puck. Like the camera angle on that
missed his head by an inch.
But yeah, I think that was probably like the funniast moment out of this past week so far. But yeah,
he's gonna ruin that shiny forehead of his.
But
also, I wanted to throw in quick too. As good as Barkov's goal were, we touched on this before we went on air, but Philippe Forsberg's potential lacrosse style goal behind the net that he almost scored. That was an unbelievable play and would have been an unreal goal because I've yet to see anybody at the NHL level score a goal like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Not since I believe it was Brendan Morrison, right? The Michigan goal.
I've seen it lots in juniors and in NCAA since, and even in Europe, but I have yet to see it in the NHL. I thought Robbie Schremp might be the first guy to do it, but he never really lasted. So.
yeah, that. Well, I think Michael Granlund had one in Europe. I think that was the one I remember from behind the net, scooping it up and in. But yeah, thanks for all your support. We'll be back on Friday with our Canuck edition, and then Monday, the big day, trade deadline day. It will be a huge episode. Hopefully, some of these guys get moved sooner rather than later. So then we'll be able to talk about it. But yeah, it'll be a jam-packed show on Monday.
Awesome. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube for the show, like and share on Facebook for all the highlights, and, of course, our show on there as well, B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with Matt Balzer, wishing you guys a fantastic evening, and we'll see you guys all on Friday.